Good morning, everyone. Welcome to ZatZoom. How y'all doing? Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Linda. I'm doing great.
Good, good. Well, that's an improvement. Well, today my partner in crime, Kathy, has another engagement, so I'm flying solo, but I'm going to rely on you, Mary, because you can always be depended upon. So today we're going to analyze nutrition labels. We're going to look at when they were created and all of that, and what they're supposed to tell us. Because everybody knows about them, but they can be really tricky to understand. So depending on your nutritional needs. So, but first let's begin. What's in your diffuser?
Cinnamon and orange.
I thought about putting cinnamon and orange in today, but I decided on grapefruit because I just love the smell of grapefruit. Just so French, and my grapefruit tree in the backyard actually has grapefruit on it, but they're only like this big right now. So maybe by like November, I might have some some fresh homegrown grapefruit I'm excited for. But one of the things that grapefruit does for you is it actually curbs your appetite, can stave off those cravings. So we're going to be talking all about food and food labels. So I thought maybe I needed a little extra in there to do that. So we're gonna, just interrupt me today, because otherwise I'll be like, blah, 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 and there'll be no conversation. So interrupt and I will stop. So we're going to talk about when the first nutrition labels appeared, why they were created, what are they based on, how do they work if everybody needs has different nutritional needs, analyzing the labels and the ingredients, the macros and micros, and then putting it all together. So do you read labels, Mare?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been reading labels for 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's good. I mean, and I read them more now than I did in the past. But truth time, do you make impulse purchases sometimes at the grocery store? You just see something, go, oh, that looks like it would be good, and throw it in your cart. Yeah.
And I don't read the label, but mostly.
Right. Well, because you already know it's bad, right?
When I know it's bad, then I don't read the label, and
right.
I do cheat.
Yeah, we're human, right? We have those cravings, or something looks delicious, but I've found myself more and more trying to walk away from those things. Like, oh, those brownies look really good. No. Put your blinders on. So any idea when the first nutrition labels came out? If you had to guess, like around what year or what decade?
I would say that I'm not sure, the 19th or the 20th. Or the 18th.
Wait, decade. 1800s or 1900s? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. 1994. 1994 was the first time that we saw them on food packaging. So it's not that old, right? What's that? Not even 30 years, right? And so they've evolved steadily since that time. Their content and their format are regularly revised to reflect new knowledge in science and nutrition and all of that. So I need my glasses for this today. So originally, food labeling, not these nutrition labels that we know about, but food labeling emerged as a safety precaution for consumers, due to foodborne illnesses and outbreaks, especially in the 1850s. Okay, so they might have labeled food, but they didn't have this nutrition label. And so the death of President Zachary Taylor after consuming contaminated fruit and milk at a picnic was a catalyst for this. And the USDA was the USDA was created in 1862 by President Lincoln. And that led to the creation of strict guidelines for food handling and processing. So it wasn't until that time that, you know, people had a warning. Now, still 100, it would take 128 years before we found those food labels, before they came out. And one of the reasons is they were mostly concerned with, like I said, the food handling and processing of food. Because until the 1960s, most people would just prepare their foods at home. And so we weren't buying packaged goods. But then, you know, there was an increased demand for prepackaged foods, TV dinners, all those kinds of things. And so in 1966, the USDA mandated that a list of ingredients must be placed on all products participating in interstate commerce, going from state to state, due to consumer demand for this accurate information. And then many companies also added the health benefits, okay? But with that came another set of problems. And it still appears today, and we talked a little bit about this a few weeks ago when we talked about organic labeling and what it means to be truly organic, you know, what seal has to be you know, you can't just, well, people do, they put organic on the label, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is organic unless it carries that USDA seal. There's rules about that. So in 1973, well, there was a lot of misleading information coming out, right? So they would say, oh, this is healthy for you, but then it really wasn't. And so in 1973, the Supreme Court ruled that nutrition facts had to be mandatory on all foods boasting any health benefits like low fat or reduced cholesterol or heart healthy. So a version of the food label came out in 1973, but it was only for those foods that actually made claims, okay? And then any food that made those claims about preventing or curing a specific disease were actually considered an illegal drug. You can't claim that something cures, right? And a parallel to that is we can't claim that essential oils cure anything because it hasn't been researched and, you know, and thoroughly investigated. So that's why you'll see a lot of oilers are very careful about what they say on social media. And if they do say something, they're going to present facts about it. So the same thing happened with food. People were saying, oh, this is going to cure blah, blah, blah. And they couldn't do that unless they had facts. And if not, it was considered an illegal drug and they would have to cease and desist. So 1990, in the 90s rather, through the FDA, through Nutrition Labeling and Education Act, mandated that all food companies were required to make consistent claims and include a detailed, standardized nutrition facts panel on all products being sold. So that was 1994. So they're relatively new in the scheme of things. And have they shared a lot? Not significantly, but there have been some changes. The addition of trans fat was added in 2006. So before that, we just had fat, total fat, saturated fat, and then trans fat was added. I'm going to share my screen, and I have a lot of graphics today to help keep me off the camera here. So this is the original label, and then the new label that came out in, I think, I don't have that date. It was, I think it was just in recent years, like in 2017, something like that. Sorry, I don't have the exact date. So one thing was this serving size. My husband's making a smoothie. I hope that doesn't interfere with our sound. The serving size and the servings per container were, well, the serving size is larger. Okay, that's number one. Wait a minute, I have a large print on this one so I can you hear that? in the background?
A little bit.
Okay.
Well, that's okay.
It's mostly annoying me, I suppose. So this size has been increased. And they also updated the serving sizes, because what would happen was the manufacturer would have something would say, oh, the serving size is a half a cup. And then they would find, they realized that the typical human being was not limiting themselves to half a cup. So the serving sizes are now updated to show what the typical serving size would be. And so one of the things you have to worry about is that's not permission to eat that amount. It's not the recommended amount of a serving size. It's just typically what people eat. So the serving size, I don't know what this one is. I think these are just generic examples, but it went from maybe from 1/2 to 2/3 of a cup to reflect what people were actually eating. I think, oh, they were talking specifically about ice cream was 1/2, and then it went up to 2/3, because most people don't eat just a half a cup of ice cream, even 2/3. I don't know. And then there were also new requirements for certain size packages, such as those that are between 1 and 2 servings or are larger than a single serving, but could be consumed in one sitting, right? So, you open that bag of chips that is that medium size. It's not a full bag, but it's not those little snack sizes. And it's not intended for you to eat the whole thing, but you do, because it's chips, right? And so, I don't think I have an example of this, but some of the labels changed to reflect single serving, or if right next to it, they would also have the nutrition facts for if you eat the whole bag. So that was a change. Calories is larger, bolder. It's right there, right in front of you. And then as I said, adding the calories from fat was what they used to say. But because not all fat is created equal, as we saw a couple weeks ago, they now list the trans fat. Okay, so this label is kind of a weird one because it has the trans fat and the calories from fat. So I think it went through some changes. So trans fat, added sugars has been added. Instead of just total sugars, how much of that is added sugar, something that is not naturally occurring in the product, but was added by the manufacturer. And so that is important. And this particular product would already be over, because I think they want you to have no more than 10%. Holy heck, would you stop already? I'm live. I'm on ZatZoom, dear. Drink that thing. Stop making noise. He apologized. Okay, so added sugars in grams. So that would be foods packaged as sweeteners would have that. Sugars from syrups, honey, sugars from concentrated fruit or vegetable juices. And they said it should not be more than 10% of your daily calories. So if you're on a 2,000 calorie diet, 200 calories is 10%. Okay. And this already has 20%, whatever this is that we're seeing. So making sense of that, knowing the added sugars are going to put a greater toll on your body than just natural sugars. The nutrients that are required, so they have the macronutrients of the fat, the carbohydrates, and the protein. And then as far as the nutrients, vitamins and minerals, vitamin D and potassium are required, and vitamin A and C are no longer required, since deficiencies of these vitamins are rare today. But we do tend to have deficiencies in vitamin D and in potassium. And then for certain ones, the actual amount in milligrams or micrograms, in addition to the percentage, has to be present. So you can notice here, before they would just have iron, now it has iron 8 milligrams. So those are required. So potassium and vitamin D are, you should find on every label. And then other ones are just if they, it's by choice, or if they tout a specific benefit from that. So that's kind of interesting. And then there's a footnote at the bottom that's changed a little bit, mostly telling you that it's based on 2,000 calories a day. So I thought that was a little bit, it's a little bit deceiving if you think about it. So if you're looking at this and saying, oh, it only has 8 grams of fat, that's 10% of what I need each day. But that's if you're eating 2,000. So if you are on a more restrictive calorie diet, you know, like right now I'm trying to stay under 1,700, that 8 grams is more than 10% of my diet. Or if you are eating more than 2,000 calories a day, maybe you are an athlete, a bodybuilder, or whatever, for whatever reason you're eating more, then you've got a little bit more leeway, because 8 grams is not 10%. So that's something to think about, is it's based on 2,000 calories a day. Let's see, I'm trying to figure out where I am at in the scheme of things. So let's see, that was that. I think I already covered that. All right, moving on. So the daily values are based on, as I said, the 2,000 calories a day, right? You may need more, you may need less. And the recommendations for some of them are to go less than 100%. So for saturated fat, sodium, and added sugars, the max you should be having is 20 grams, 2,300 milligrams. Oh, and I must say that that changed. Sodium used to be a top of 2,400. Now it's 2,300. And then the added sugars, 50 grams, which is less than it, you know, that's your 100% value is 50 grams based on 2,000 calories, but you really should be getting less than that if you can. Okay. And then with the nutrients that we tend to be lacking, their recommendation is at least 100%, 28 grams of fiber, right? Or out of these nutrients, vitamin D, at least 20 macrograms, I think that's what it's called, a day, right? So these you can go higher on, but that's what your bare minimum should be. You should be there. So I thought that makes a little bit of sense, that we're not just hitting those 100% marks, but some we should be less, some we should be more. Did you know that, Mary? Did you have any sense of that?
No, I had no clue. So it's not on the nutrient label, is it?
Right. No, it's not. It's not. So
Yeah.
that was kind of eye-opening for me, because everybody looks at 100%. That's what we should be going for. But with those harmful nutrients, like saturated fat, which isn't, kind of hard to call it a nutrient, sodium, and added sugars, like, yeah, that's your max. You really should be less. So I did not know that either. Now, did you realize that the labels are based on 2,000 calories a day? Like, did you make that connection, or were you just always looking at?
I just read it, and yeah, I
Yeah.
never paid attention to that part.
Right. So I think, you know, that as I discovered, that there's a lot of misunderstanding about these food labels. So until you really dig in there and figure them out, it's hard to understand, because you just read it and you go, oh, if you're just looking at calories, no biggie. But if you're looking at the daily value, the percentage, then your numbers are skewed. And for kids, if you look at it, a 2 or 3 year old is only supposed to have about 1,000 calories a day, male or female. And so when you look at that, you want to give half of those amounts. And so I wonder how many parents realize that, you're looking at this and you're going, oh, it only has 10 grams of sugar. They can have that, whatever it is, right? And then realizing that their nutritional needs are different. So it's not until you get to be 14 to 18 years old, well, even in a male, that your caloric needs go up, right? Everything else, girls, we never get to that point until, I don't even know what adult recommendations are, but 2000 is kind of the average. But for boys, it's not until they get to be about 14 years old that they're going to need more than 2000 calories a day. And anybody who's had a son who's gone through puberty has come to that realization when they are hungry all the time and eat mass quantities. So just one of those things. I'm going to stop the share because I have something else. Want to show you something that I found for analyzing these labels, okay? And also that the USDA guide, we talked about that a few weeks ago when we talked about when the USDA came about and all of that. And so we talked about those nutrition guides. And where the heck are they? That is so weird. It just disappeared. I don't want that. All right, I'm gonna have to go back and find it. Where is my, oh, okay, we're in the wrong spot here. There it is. Okay, now I can share it with you. It had just disappeared for some reason on my screen because I minimized it. So this is the dietary guidelines for Americans for 2020 to through 2025, and at which time they're probably in the process now of looking at the research and making updates. But this is, I wonder how many people actually look at this, because it says it's for Americans, right? But how many Americans actually go in here and say, gee, what should I be eating? And what are the guidelines? So they spend all this money making this. It's here for the viewing, okay? And there is a table of contents. So if you want to look and see what the recommendations are, here's fruits, vegetables, grains, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of a good guide. And there's lots of tables and figures in there. Let's see. Lots of fun pictures, executive summary, whatever. They, eventually they get to the guidelines that we talked about a few weeks ago. So I'll put that in the links on Living Well and Wise so people can see. But it's starts with dietaryguidelines.gov, and you could probably find it that way too. So all of the guidelines are there. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then let's see, change this. There is also this really cool interactive nutrition facts label that you can look at, and you can explore this and find out about it. So if I want to know, what are they talking about with total fat, saturated fat, trans fat, I can click on it and they're going to tell me about it, what it is, where it's found, what it does, all of that sort of thing. So we're not going to go through there. And it also has downloads with other facts and information. So it's totally, everything on here has a hyperlink to tell you more information about that. So that is accessdata.fda.gov, but I will put that in there. Let's see, what's this other one? Oh, I will share that one later. So let me stop. Okay, so we talked about what the changes were, but let's look at the different pieces a little bit more with more detail. So I am going to share the screen one more time, and I'm going to go to the next label here. So this is the old label. Notice calories from fat, no trans fat, no added sugars. So that's the old one. And then here's a couple of new ones. So they have the trans fat, the total sugars, and all of that. And another one here. That one's a little bit bigger. Maybe we'll work with that one today. So what's on the food label? First, you got your servings per container, which is always important to know because especially with smaller package sizes, have you ever eaten the whole thing and then realized it was supposed to feed 3 people and not 1 person? Like, I've done that. And then the serving size. Okay, then the again, the serving size is based on the amount of food that is usually eaten at one time. It's not a recommendation for your serving size. And as we said before, some of those have changed to reflect better what people eat, what they typically consume, rather than how much they should consume. The calories are the total calories, which is a measure of how much energy you get from that food. And again, it's based on 1,000 calories a day. So if you are calorie counting, a lot of times you're not counting, you're not going all the way to 2,000. So these percentages are skewed because of that. Your fat shows your saturated fat and your trans fat. So there are healthy fats. So what you have to do is to take a look at how much trans fat there is, how much saturated fat, and understand that, okay, 8.5 of that fat is probably good fat. Of course, too much fat is never a good thing, but at least I know that most of the fat that's in this product is not saturated or trans fat. So it's on a healthier scale. Trans fat increases your risk of heart disease. So ideally, the goal is 0 grams of trans fat a day. And it means that your food may, okay, so even if it has 0 grams or less than 0.5 grams, if that is what it says in here, it could mean that it still has trans fat, okay? And you want to check the ingredient list for trans fat products, which would include hydrogenated vegetable oils. And trans fat is often found in baked goods, fried foods, snack foods, and margarine. And today, it was kind of serendipitous, I guess. I get little emails from AARP about health and wellness and stuff. And today's, it was, the heck was it called? It was called 5 Foods to Skip After 50. But when I looked at it, it wasn't 5 foods, it was 5 types of foods. And so one of the first one was fried foods. Fried foods actually triple your calories. And then, of course, they're going to have a lot more saturated fat and maybe even some trans fat in there. So fat, not good when it's saturated or trans. Okay. I lost where we were. No, that's not where I am. How come I can't see us again? Okay, that's because I'm sharing and I'm going to go back to where I was. Where was I? I don't know where I was. I am lost. What was I sharing? What do you see?
I see nutrition facts still, the one,
Okay,
190
that's why.
calories.
I gotcha. So okay, I'm back. If I click off of that, I can see whatever I want to see, not what you're seeing. So that's why I got lost. Okay. Okay, so it shows your cholesterol. And I think I need to learn more about that number because I don't know a whole lot about that. And when I was looking, there wasn't a whole lot there. So that might be my next thing to investigate. Sodium, and this is based on 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day. So that's a number that a lot of people are trying to cut. They're either doing low sodium or they're doing no sodium, reduced sodium, whatever. So that was another one on that AARP article that you really have to be careful of processed foods. Instant foods like frozen pizza has a tremendous amount of sodium. as do like canned soups. Even the ones that say reduced sodium have a lot of sodium in them. So that's another number you really want to work at. Total carbohydrates. Now that that makes a difference, right? Foods contain high amounts of simple sugars. Foods that contain high amounts of simple sugars, especially fructose, they raise your triglycerides levels, and that's important measure of your metabolism. And high levels may be associated with coronary heart disease, diabetes, and fatty liver. So you got to watch your carbohydrates. And now they have all three types of carbohydrates: your sugar, your starch, and your fiber. And it's important to use the total grams when counting carbs or choosing which foods to include. Below the total carbs, you find a breakdown of the types of carbohydrates. So dietary fiber, we talked a little bit about this last week, is a type of carbohydrate that cannot be digested or not easily digested. And it can speed up the movement of food and waste through the body, increasing the frequency of bowel movements, which is a good thing. I just actually posted in a group this morning that you should be pooping after every meal, or nearly so, 3 times a day at least, to keep things moving. And if you're not, that's constipation, even if you're not feeling that strain. So something to keep in mind, that you should be going regularly. And if you're not, you need to increase more fruits and vegetables with that high fiber content. Your sugars, your total sugars include sugars that are naturally present in food and the added sugars. So when you look at that, notice that this one is indented. So there's no added sugars in this particular product that we're looking at, this label. So when you look at the total carbs, first of all, it's pretty low for whatever this is. And the dietary fiber is not good, but the total sugars is only 1/4 of that total, which means, and then there's no added sugar. So this is not a bad product. It's just not a high carb product, but it is a high protein product. You want good protein sources. Now, none of these labels right now have ingredients, which that's another piece of the nutrition fact. So we can look at those in a bit. The things that need to be on there now, I think, are these 4 products, but certainly the vitamin D and the potassium. So potassium is a mineral that helps with fluid balance and heart, muscle, and nervous system function. The vitamin D helps your body absorb calcium and is important for bone health. And it also plays a role in blood pressure management, hormone production, and immune and nervous system function. And diets higher in vitamin D can reduce the risk of developing osteoporosis. Calcium, important for bone health, and it also helps with muscle and nerve function, blood clotting, and hormone secretion. And then, what's the last one here? I already read about that one. Let's see. All right, so nutrition facts labels must include vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. Okay, so those 4 must be listed. And again, it's because those are the nutrients that we are most often deficient in. And then other vitamins and minerals may be listed voluntarily by the manufacturer, but they are required to list any vitamins and minerals that are added to the food. So if it's a food additive kind of thing, like fortified with 19 vitamins and minerals that you see on cereals and things like that, then they have to list those amounts. Okay. Or if they make a statement on the package labeling about their health effects or the amount of contained in a food, for example, a high or a low, whatever. And similarly, on supplement facts, on it's a supplement fact on, it's like a nutrition label, but it's for vitamins. They're required to list the same nutrients as nutrition facts labels when any of these nutrients are found in the supplement. So just note about your supplement label. What do I have here? Yeah, this one, I can't even pronounce what it is. I ordered something and they sent the wrong thing, and then they said, well, just keep it. So, but I don't even know what this is. So I'm going to research and see what it is and see if I can use it. Okay, so the next part of this is actually reading the ingredients, because even though we have all of those nutrients listed, and I just realized that I never stopped to see if anybody was watching today.
No.
I'm sorry for that. I apologize if anybody's actually there. I don't know why it doesn't default. All right, let's see if I can update that. It. Okay. I don't know why it's not doing that. I think we're on, but it's not showing me we're on. It is. They cancel.
Yeah, I think you're on, because I always get a little blurb that says you're on.
Good.
You're recording, and then I get another one saying you're putting it on,
It says
network.
it came up saying that it was on a sales format. I'm like, why is it on a sales format? That's why it wasn't showing up on me. All right. Well, I don't think anybody's watching with us today, Mary. We're all alone. That's so sad. But all right. Anyway, there we go. Where was I? Sorry. I got too many things on my desk. I'm messing around here. Okay. So reading the nutrition label. Okay. So I think most people know that the largest quantity of the ingredients is listed first. So whatever the most is in that product, it's listed first. And then the thing that has the least amount in there is listed last. Nutrition labels state how many calories and nutrients are in a standard product. However, these serving sizes are frequently smaller. Okay, we already read that. Let's see. All right, sugars versus carbs. Low sugar or even sugar-free products still contain carbs. So if you're thinking that you can eat as much as you want of something, you can't, because you're still getting those carbs. So a lot of times we feel like, oh, well, I can eat that because it's sugar-free, right? I'm looking for a specific thing here. All right, here, I think I can share this with you. If I can make my way back to Zoom again. This is so complicated. Just too many things. Okay. All right, so this may be a little bit small, but in this particular, this is a cereal, okay? So they add on the half a cup of vitamin A or whatever, but let's just look at the first column. And this is an old one, calories from fat. But they do have the trans fat there. But let's look at the carbohydrates. 27 is the total carbohydrates, and it is a grain if it's a cereal. Dietary fiber is part of that, and soluble fiber. I don't think they put that in there anymore. Soluble might be what you can digest of that. So 2 of it you can't, and 2 of it you can. And then 1 gram of sugar. So this isn't a great example. This one, okay, these are older labels. But if something is touted as, I don't have one. Okay, if it's low sugar, you want to see, are there added sugars in there? And then read the label for what kinds of sugars are in there. So we learned a couple weeks ago, well, was it last week? We talked about carbs,
Yes, right.
how sugar can be listed in different ways. So in the ingredients, it might be listed as honey, agave, those types of things, but it also could be listed as sucrose or lactose or whatever. And so you have to kind of know those names and look for that hidden sugar that's in there. But at the same time, my point being with sugar is that even if it says it's low sugar, it might be low sugar, but it might be high fat. It might be have a lot of calories in it. So low sugar does not mean no calories. So we have to be really careful when we don't get drawn into those marketing schemes of, you know, high this, low that, because when you look at it overall, it's going to be skewed.
Anything with an OSE at the end is sugar.
Yeah.
Anything, any word with an OSE.
Yeah.
Mm.
Watch out for your OSs. So you should look at the names, the ingredients, right? When we read the ingredient label, if there are things we can't pronounce and we've never seen those words before, generally that means don't buy it, right? You want to stay away from that stuff. But it also could mean that you need to figure out what those are, because sometimes there are some complicated names for ingredients that are perfectly fine. So educate yourself on what those are. If the first ingredients include refined grains, a type of sugar, or hydrogenated oils, you can assume that product is unhealthy and stay away from it. In addition, ingredients list that is longer than 2 to 3 lines suggests that the product is highly processed. I like that. That's like a simple thing. If it's a really long list of ingredients, it's processed. It's highly processed. All right. And then let's see what else. Oh, this one killed me. After doing all this research, it says, unfortunately, nutrition labels are not always factual. For starters, the law allows a pretty lax margin of error, up to 20% for the stated value versus the actual value of ingredients. So in reality, that means 100 calorie pack could theoretically contain up to 120 calories and still not be violating the law. So I wonder how many manufacturers use that 20% scheme. You know,
quite a few.
If it's 120, I can put 100 on there and I'm still following the law. But, you know, buyer beware. So that's why it's important to look at the ingredients as well. There's a report, I forget what GAO was. Oh, well, it's an official government agency. They reported that 1/3 of the audited labels were unacceptably inaccurate with regard to iron content. So that was just one thing they were looking for. And this person that I got the information from is a nutritionist, and they said that I routinely find erroneous overstatements of iron content that wouldn't have passed a sanity check by a first-year nutrition student. So the labels kind of give you guidelines, but they are not hard and fast truth at all. Another example, she said, oddly, the label of a leading brand of cereal states that the product's iron content jumps from 10 to 15% once you add milk. And she said, there's not that much iron in milk. So there's mistakes along the way here. Almost half of the items analyzed had reported vitamin A levels outside the permitted 20% variance. And a lot of times it's got higher vitamin A. So for that one, they kind of err. They don't report as much as there actually is in the product. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because are there problems with vitamin A overdose, I guess. All right, so let's look at some of the things. There was, I like this site. I'm going to share this and go over the pros and cons of nutrition labeling. You know, and I'd say the first thing is buyer beware, because it's not always truthful. But let's see. Here's some pros and cons. So there's going to be information about the ingredients, your nutrition values. It might raise the awareness of people who are watching their diet, right? Now I'm looking at labels and trying to make healthier choices. Your portion size, you know, you go, oh, wow. You mean like 3 scoops of ice cream isn't normal? Okay. I love ice cream, but I've learned to savor a smaller amount if I'm going to indulge. Helpful information for people who are suffering from diseases like celiac disease. You want to read the label to see what's in there, right? Allergies, obesity, and diabetes. These are all very helpful sources to see what's in a product. It might also help people raise their children in a healthier manner. And unhealthy products may vanish from the market. So when you're reading the labels and you go, oh, heck no, and you don't buy it, and other people are doing the same, that product's going to disappear eventually because it's not healthy. I don't know what they said about the economic benefits. Not sure. Maybe it's just the opposite. If something actually has a good label and is healthy, maybe you buy more of it. I don't know. But the cons. So they may mislead people. Claims on the product that are low fat or low carb, right? You're going to assume your fat and sugar-free products are healthy. Not necessarily. And depending on your dietary needs, cutting back on sugar or fat could help you reach your health goals. But reduced fat products tend to have extra sodium or sugar, and lower sugar often means more fat or salt. So it's a trade-off, you know. Yeah, it might be low sugar, but boy, are they putting the fat in there, right? Whatever they're taking out, they typically add something else to be able to add flavor. And you might actually find yourself more satisfied with a full fat product. For example, if just a small handful of regular potato chips kills your craving, but you could polish off a family-sized bag of baked chips easily, stick with the fattier version, right? Number 2, people may not be able to read food labels properly. Well, yeah, I
Actually,
took
if
it at
that.
face value, right? We didn't know anything about that. We're not and then some people are just not educated about the nutrients or the amounts that you're supposed to have. The food label only gives basic information. There's not enough details there. The optimal caloric intake depends on individual circumstances. So again, if your gender, your age, and your activity level have something to do with how many calories you should be eating each day. And so if you're just going by the label and saying, oh, this is good for me, but your caloric needs are much less or much higher, it's not really a good indication. There's often no difference between good and bad fats, right? So all kinds of fats contain similar amounts of calories, but there's still a huge difference regarding their health effects. So while there's a lot of information that saturated fats are harmful to human health, unsaturated fatty acids can actually be quite healthy. Here, producers often try to mask unhealthy ingredients. So, example, something might say 50% less sugar, but when you look at the nutritional values, you will often see that sugar has been replaced with sweeteners that are even more harmful to health. So you have to be careful about your sugar substitutes as well. So yeah, it might have less sugar, whole sugar or natural sugar or whatever it is, but it's the type of sugar that actually matters. There's deceptive claims, right? So you want to stay wide awake and skeptical when it comes to promises on food labels, which sound suspicious or too good to be true. People think that made with real fruit is basically a packaged apple. No, no. So those different claims can be really deceiving, right? Let's see. Y'all think that wheat bread is a superfood, right? People started putting wheat, whole wheat bread and things like that. But you got to look at the whole list of ingredients, right? And look to see that are there whole grains being used throughout. Wheat bread could actually contain some white bread too, but maybe because there's more wheat than white, wheat bread is not necessarily healthy. In fact, a lot of the varieties are not that healthy. Consumer trust can be exploited. A lot of times consumers don't even question what producers promise on those food labels, so they're fooled. And people may buy the wrong products based on what their interpretation is of the label. Food labels should contain additional information. Sometimes we don't, go further and look at things. And then it also takes away accountability from people. So if you put all of your trust into food labels without really knowing the facts about those nutrients, what they're based on, and what can be hidden within them, then you're just saying, well, the label says, and not so good. So my takeaway on some of these things is don't let one ingredient or nutrient guide, one thing guide your choice, right? Low fat may be high sugar, whole grain may be high fat. Balance is really important. And the best guidance I can give is to minimize the number of foods that actually contain a food label. Okay. You buy a banana at the store, it doesn't come with the nutrition label. And so the more that you can buy that is whole foods, unpackaged or minimally processed, that's going to bump up the quality of your nutrition in your diet. And be careful. Like I am doing a whole food plant-based lifestyle now. We've decided to ditch a lot of products. We're really careful. I've lost like 13 pounds, 13 and a half pounds since I started. And I've lost 3.5 pounds this week simply because I have cut out, I've watched my fat. I started exercising more, but I've also been monitoring everything on myfitnesspal.com. And it's really easy to do because there's so many people using it that anything you possibly could eat, unless you made it up yourself, you can find the nutrient values really quickly. So like even purple carrot meals that I get, I can just put in purple carrot tacos and it comes up and it already has all the information in there. So it's really super easy. And it helps me to know how many calories I'm eating, and you can set your own limits, how many macros of the carbs, protein, and fat. And it's really helped me. And I've lost 3.5 pounds since last Saturday. So good stuff there. But
Congratulations.
thank you. With a whole food plant-based diet, there's no meat, but this looks pretty good with protein, but look at the fat content and look at the carbs. Now, there's not a lot of carbs in meat in a hamburger unless you're eating it with a bun. Let's just look at this. I found this and it made me want to throw away what's in my refrigerator now, my freezer. So this is a Beyond Meat burger and this is 100% beef, okay? Less calories, 250 to 310. The fat is less for a Beyond Meat. So far we're doing okay. Less saturated fat, all that's good. No cholesterol, that's good. But 390 degrees of sodium, 16% of your daily value, if you're using 2000 calories, is you're getting through your sodium. So that's kind of crazy. And there's 3 grams of carbs, which means that there's got to be grains in there as well, versus none in meat. But most of it's dietary and it doesn't look like it's added sugars, but It's hard to tell because the added sugar part isn't on here. Protein, about the same. Okay. So for me, while this tasted good, I'm not going to do that sodium thing to myself. Okay. Another, looking at these different oatmeal comparisons, Quaker Quick Oats versus Bob whole grain oats versus Bob, that should be steel cut, not steel cut. Steel cut oats, look at this, is only a quarter of a cup versus a half a cup. So it looks better with calories, but the serving size is half. So even though they seem like they're pretty equal, this one's got half. You know, if you're going to eat the same amount, you're getting double of all of these things. And we looked at this already. So I'm going to take that, stop sharing that. And we're almost out of time, but I would suggest that you read the labels. Like, this is what my husband and I had for a snack last night. And while it's not perfect, it's better in some ways. Ingredients are sweet potatoes, Yukon Gold potatoes, blue potatoes, expeller pressed canola oil, and sapphire oil, and sunflower oil. So those oils are not necessarily healthy. So it doesn't have any trans fat in them though. So yeah, and you want to look at the size. Like, my husband opened the bag and started putting his hand in it, and I was like, no. And I went and I measured out a portion so that we knew that we were going to stick to the 140 calories. Couple of other things that I just found that are healthy for you than pasta is this Wonder Noodles. And this comes in like packaged in water. And these have 10 calories for a serving size. And this is a 2 serving size. So half of this is 10 calories. So even if you eat the whole thing, it's only 20 calories. There's no cholesterol, there's no fat, and there's only, I think, 4 grams of fat or 4 grams of carbs in the whole thing. So much better on a low carb diet. And then organic soba, this has a lot more bang for the buck. It has more calories, but it's got more nutrition in it as well. So just, there are healthier things out there. And so my recommendations is myfitnesspal.com. Find your own, you could, there's actually a recipe, I'll put it in there. There is a something that will turn your recipes into a nutrition label. It'll take all the things that you put into it and then turn it into a nutrition label, so you can figure out your homemade foods and things like that. So processed foods are more caloric dense. They have more fat, sodium process, less nutrients. And the preservatives could be harmful, like nitrates and things like that. So read your labels. Mary, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate your company and your input. And I know you have to go. So
I do have to go. Yeah.
too. So thanks for joining Saturday Zoom. And you can see this on Living Well and Wise, or Linda Loves Lavender, or my YouTube station, which is also Linda Loves Lavender. Have a great week, everybody.
You too. Bye.
Bye.